Thank you for checking out the Media Marketing Podcast, a place where you can learn all things media and marketing related. Don't miss a beat in boosting your business and your brand. In each episode, you'll gain valuable insights, tools, and strategies to apply to your marketing efforts. And now your host, Brian Cargill.
Steven, I appreciate you coming onto the show. This is awesome to have you. I've been wanting to have you on the show for a long time, especially as one of the show sponsors, songtub.com. And your wealth of knowledge around music and all things user interface. And let's jump into your bio. I'm taking this directly from Steven's LinkedIn. I'm reading as Steven. I love my work in digital marketing and web design. I spend most of my time on research-backed strategies that improve user experience, SEO, analytics, and overall conversions online. I have experience helping both large enterprises and local businesses with their digital strategies, both of which I find equally rewarding. I am a University of Oregon alumni, chronic optimist, and lifelong learner. Excited to hear about those. Outside of my marketing work, I compose music, operate a music licensing website, songtub.com, and help organize the Van Techie meetup group. Currently accepting ping-pong challenges and cups of coffee.
Absolutely.
So I will challenge you officially to ping-pong on the podcast.
Let's do it. Let's go.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, thanks for coming on the show, Steven. How are things going?
Things are going well. For those listening currently, we're in quarantine. For those listening in the future, we're in a strange time right now. We're stuck at home, at least here in Washington State. You're over on the Oregon side, but I think it's a similar story.
Yeah, what are you doing to stay sane during this time?
I logged 2.5 hours of Mario Kart on my phone today. So that's where I'm at.
That's awesome.
Yeah, somehow I did. Like you get into the what's that thing in the iPhone now where they give you screen time?
Mm-hmm.
My Mario Kart percentage daily usage is going up exponentially.
Do you feel like you're getting better though? Like that's the real question.
I'm getting better. I just started on like Saturday and pretty much crushing it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I don't play. Yeah. That's what I'm doing. I'm trying to find ways to have fun. I'm trying to learn things. I'm trying to stay active mentally by adopting new skills and reading books and trying to stay, progress in some way because, as you can't be social physically, you can at least kind of work on some skills or something like that.
Yeah, you don't want to stay too stagnant. I actually just finished a book called Why Johnny Can't Brand, and that'll actually be an episode that comes before this. I'm going to do a book review of it, but it's a marketing book that's pretty well known. But yeah, excited to have you here on the show. Glad you're staying sane. Glad you work on things. My game of choice lately has been chess, but yeah,
it's a little higher brow than where I took my time.
Oh, nah. I think it's just Anyway, but I think our viewers are trying to, probably playing games to stay sane during this time and doing whatever it takes. But we met through Andrew Wise,
right,
who is our mutual connection, who is all about the entrepreneur space, and so he put together this group called Young Entrepreneurs, Ambitious, Hungry, something like that. Always
Close
hungry.
enough.
Yeah, close enough. But it was awesome meeting you at those sessions, and you're a guy that does a lot of different things. Did we cover everything in that intro?
No, but yeah, and I'm a person that is curious. The bio that you mentioned, it's catered a little bit more towards my professional life and work and some of the things I do in the side business. But you're right. I'm definitely a curious person trying different things, failing at a lot of different things. So most of the failures are not present in the bio.
Hey, but you learn from those. What was it? Thomas Edison said he failed 1,000 times and patented them all. So
yeah,
I think that's part of it.
The patenting is a good thing. I actually had a business idea this year that I was trying to manufacture it's an audio product, and got to the point where I was speaking with a manufacturer in China, and somebody had a patent on that idea and I couldn't do it. So there you go. Thomas Edison, patent your ideas.
Oh, interesting. Wow. How did you didn't have to go through too much legal trouble to find the patent, or like you didn't go through like create anything and then eventually have to shut it down, or?
No, it was one of those mornings where you wake up and you're like, ah, ha, ha, I've got an idea. And then you're going to Google everything and do all this stuff. And next thing you know, I'm duct taping foam on a piece of microphone and sending pictures to all my friends and contacting suppliers in China, and then, getting disappointed.
Oh man.
Yeah.
But you probably learned from that experience.
Oh yeah.
They say good ideas come out of bad ideas, so maybe it'll lead to something else.
Yeah.
That is the $1 million idea.
Um,
I'll go for it.
oh, I was going to say that, yeah, we met in a small entrepreneur group and instantly had a connection. I mean, I feel like you and I get along in a number of ways. And for those listening, I think it's incredibly valuable to look at who you're spending your time around. If you are looking to spend your time around more curious people, listening to podcasts and that kind of thing is good to get inspired. But I really think it's important to get in person when you can with those who are like-minded, because you'll get inspired and get feedback in ways that, you wouldn't have otherwise thought.
Yeah, I'm a huge agreement. We're lucky today with the internet. You can access, videos, podcasts, books, everything. But yeah, having actual people to talk with, bounce ideas off of, keep you accountable. We have those monthly check-ins, and I feel like if I told everyone, hey, I was going to do this thing, and then I show up empty-handed,
Right.
It makes you kind of adds an extra level of guilt. And then I usually go home and wind up accomplishing whatever it is after the fact. So so for today's podcast, I was thinking about breaking it into two sections. The first half, we can talk about the music and the impact that has on media and your marketing efforts. And then the second half, we can break down the fundamentals of analytics, research, strategy, all the things that you do in your day-to-day. How does that sound?
It sounds wonderful.
Cool. All right. So the first question, sounds like you have a lot of ideas all the time, but songtub.com. Thank you for being one of our sponsors for the show.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
I think a lot of the viewers might like to hear how this idea came about, and maybe you can talk about the challenges, what your favorite parts are about SongTub. Yeah.
Yes. So out of college, a good friend of mine, Brandon, and I, we've always been making music together since middle school, and making money on music has proven difficult over the years. We've busked at the farmers markets, countless times. I think the weirdest gig we ever had playing music was at a bingo night at like a bingo place. So over the years, we've tried, like, how can we make money on our passion? So as an effort to do that, we graduated college, we were doing this music thing, and we thought, hey, what if we licensed our music to commercials? And I learned about this in my first marketing internship out of college. I was at an advertising firm, and I didn't have any concept on what music licensing meant. And for those that aren't familiar with music licensing, if you want to put a song in a commercial, you have to pay some extra money for that. You have to license the rights to that song, and it's a whole thing. So we started creating a bunch of different styles of music, we actually had a spinning wheel where we'd put up different genres, like, we'd put up like hip hop or cowboy music or space music or whatever. So we started creating music in, each possible genre, because we thought that we could license our own music. Now, what we quickly realized is that there was no way that we could create an archive of infinite music, and that there are a lot of musicians out there that are already doing this, sometimes for a living, and doing it better and doing it in a way where we could leverage their music as well. So that's a kind of a roundabout way of saying we initially thought we would license our own music for commercial and film, but ended up creating our own platform. Now we have hundreds of artists, thousands of songs that we license to content creators at an affordable price. So those that, create content on YouTube, advertising, social media, they want quality music, but want to make sure that, it's covered, not copyrighted, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
they can come to our website and license out music.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like that you kind of talked about the whole journey, explain how this was something that you guys were passionate about, trying to figure out a way to make money. And then what's really great is that you guys own the platform. I know a
Right.
lot of creators today, especially, or other marketers, they're using the platforms that are out there like YouTube or iTunes. And if those go away or all of a sudden they change their policies, you're really at their mercy. So to create your own platform, that's huge.
Yeah.
If you had the choice, would you do it again?
Absolutely, because it is just on the spectrum of like return on investment. Financially, for those that can't see my hands right now, I'm making a pie chart. Financially, the return on investment has been little to none. I mean, it's still, for those trying to make money on music, let me know if you have a way to do that. It's very hard to do. The return on investment in terms of what I've learned from managing a business to dealing with creative license terms to how to market in terms of digital marketing and advertising on a different level than what I do in my day-to-day. So yeah, I mean, I would absolutely recommend doing some business. If you are at all entrepreneurial, dig in and do something, get a business license, build a logo, go through all that process, because the things that you're going to pick up in that first pass, it's going to, multiply tenfold when you do your next project.
Yeah. I think that's great advice. And it's not always about, kind of those dollar signs in the early stages, but here you have, the knowledge base of creating a website, doing that logo. And then I think what's the kind of the light at the end of the tunnel is becoming a consultant and telling other entrepreneurs how to do it, or, giving them advice and helping them avoid those pitfalls.
Yeah. What makes me happy though, is sending out some sort of payment to the artists that submit music to us. So like today I just went through and did like a little payout, which makes me feel good because it's, at least giving, so like adding something, I don't even know where I'm going with this, but I'm just saying that it does feel good, like you said, regardless of like, is this profitable or is this, something that I enjoy and feel good about and will continue to grow. So that's why we continue to grow it, just because we understand and empathize with the artists that are submitting music. So for us to be able to give back to other creatives, it's super valuable.
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, you're creating, income, cash flow for other
Right.
creatives. Yeah, you're kind
Exactly.
of, passing the bill along. That's awesome. And especially in the industry of music, where I don't know, maybe you have some thoughts on this. If it was all the way back to Napster, they just revolutionized things where people just didn't want to pay for music, or if it goes all the way back to, Woodstock, where people are busting down the fences to Woodstock and making their way in there and didn't feel obligated to pay. Music, for some reason, people feel like that they should get it for free.
Sure. And maybe they should. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think that as a marketer, I don't believe in fighting the market. So I think that if you're a musician as an artist, you got to look for other ways to monetize your brand. So merch or touring, tickets, they're brand deals. Like you got to look for other ways to leverage your persona, because streams and downloads and albums are, you're not going to make a dime.
They only go so far. And so, that's really looking at it from a business point of view, like holistically. So no, I think that's awesome what you guys are doing. And I'm wishing you guys best of luck. And we've enjoyed having you as the sponsors. And let people know that the promo code is Brian, Bryan.
Yes.
Go there and people can get
songtub.com
and get a discount.
pro, and you can sign up with the code Brian. I really feel good about our product. That's one thing I will say. We have very, very good music because we're musicians operating this platform. We curate everything, and that's kind of our thing. So if you look at all the different options that are out there in terms of music licensing, you could throw a rock and hit 1,000 of them. There's infinite options for licensing music. So I think the big takeaway for us is that we value our creators' time, the video maker, the editor, whoever. the last thing you want to do is spend 3 hours sifting through bad music. So we spend a lot of our time curating the music, making sure that it's actually good. And that way, when you get to the website, get to looking for what you're looking for, it's, a quick thing. It's not going to be a 2-3 hour hunt.
Yep. I've been there. I've spent countless hours doing that.
Yeah.
I've maybe sift through 30 pages and get 2 songs that you like, and then you just only hold on to those songs and use them over and over again. Then you don't really have any variety to your work.
Right.
And I think there's a good segue to talk about kind of the impact of music on a video, or the effect that you have as a viewer. You watch the same clip with music and without music, is a whole totally different feel to it.
Yeah, there's a talk I gave at a college, and one example we used was you ever watch Star Wars? You a Star Wars guy at all?
Yeah.
So Return of
the new series is okay, but
yeah, it was one of the newer ones, and somebody on YouTube stripped the audio of like the last scene of I think it was The Last Jedi or The Force Awakens. Somebody's gonna kill me because I'm getting this wrong, but it's the scene where Rey's going up the mountaintop and she sees Luke for the first time in ever, and then they're just like staring at each other, and she holds out the lightsaber, and he's like, they're just looking at each other, and they're not talking, but there's this beautiful score by John Williams, this classic like Star Wars motif, and you're just getting these feelings. You're like, oh my gosh, this is so intense and emotional. And then somebody took that entire scene, stripped the music out, and it's basically like 8 minutes of her like walking up this mountain in silence. It's just like breeze and birds chirping. And she gets to the top of this mountain and just like hands, she has this lightsaber out in the air, and there's this drone shot circling both of them, and they're just quiet, just standing there staring at each other for probably 2 minutes, which is not a normal thing to do. So that kind of goes to show how like music, it's is more than sound. It's communication. It can tell you a narrative. So there's a very clear narrative with the score of that in part of the film. Very climactic. She's getting to this emotional point at the end of the film, and through them looking at each other, through the silence with the music, there's a dialogue that happens with the score. So that's one kind of dramatic example, more on the cinematic side, but in commercial as well, you see a similar thing. If you have somebody riding, here's a weird example, but somebody like riding a bike and they crash, and one song is a funny song, and then you're like, oh, somebody crashed their bike, oh, that's hilarious. You could take the same bike crash but put something like ominous and dark and scary and have a different feeling just because of the tonality of the song.
Yeah, that's awesome. Those are 2 really great examples. And I definitely urge, I think a lot of the video editors know this, and a lot of video people and music people, but if you're a business owner and you've never done this, try this experiment out sometime. Play uplifting song, one that's a downer, and it's wild how much of an effect it has. It's so much to an extreme that when I was in school at University of Oregon taking one of my digital arts classes, our professor told us that we cannot use music unless we made it ourselves. And so most people just like left it to that, and just because it evokes so much emotion and really draws people in. And then, speaking of movies and, some of the people that are really good at this, have you heard of Disney before?
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, no, you can see my like little Disney mug I'm drinking out of over here.
That's awesome.
Just to back up a little bit, like I'm a Disney nerd. I've always liked Disney. And that's kind of a big part of why I got interested in scoring for film. Because they do, such a good job at creating themes, creating songs that are memorable, movies that are memorable.
And they keep doing it. They haven't slowed down at all.
No, they keep pumping them out. So, kind of through developing that music licensing platform, as mentioned. We got to try creating music for different genres, different platforms. And I think there's this kind of weird serendipitous thing. Both Brandon and I, my friend who I mentioned, helps me with the song tub and the composing. We both worked for the Disney company. We both worked in late high school for Radio Disney originally as talent, and then other things. So that kind of solidified an interest in just Disney and all of that. And serendipitously, after building this music licensing platform, we kind of realized like we are really good at storytelling with our music. We love watching films, and then we just kind of realized this two things that seemed unrelated kind of came together. So that's kind of an interesting thing.
That's awesome. Yeah. And so when you guys are at Disney, Radio Disney, what station was that back in the day? Like 1250?
1640 in Portland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they had different AM stations, which
that's what I was curious if you did the whole Northwest, because I grew up on Radio Disney. They actually had really good song selection.
Yeah, they had AM stations, so it varied by region, and then long story short, they put the kibosh on Radio Disney and they made an app. Yeah. So that's basically, they're like, nobody's listening to AM radio, let's make an app. So one of the reasons I think you brought up Disney is interesting because, I'm interested in, personal level just because I enjoy the content. I enjoy going to the parks. I'm interested in an artistic point of view because I am fascinated by the creation and how things are made and their whole creative engine. Then I'm also fascinated from the branding and marketing point of view on how they deliver that, how they sell that, and package it too. So it's, there are a bunch of companies that do creative or they do marketing well. Disney is a company that I'm interested in because they kind of do it all well. They do everything good.
Yeah.
And that is something I marvel at, pun intended, just from a couple different points of view. Huge corporation, some people have problems with that, but I like the content.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I think I had just seen Imagineers on Netflix or Amazon, I forget which one. And I had to message you right away. I was just like, Steven, have you seen this? And you're like, of course I have. And I was like,
I watched it 5 times.
And I think even if you are kind of hesitant to the corporation side of things for Disney, getting to hear their roots and how the challenges that they went through and then kept going through and still face today as a big organization, and all these competitors all the time, but they have managed to find a way to really bring all those different aspects together, from design to art to engineering, and then the way that they market themselves internationally. That's not easy.
No. Yeah.
So, but yeah. Are you have any plans to go back there anytime soon?
Oh, my heart is broken because the park is closed. The California's closed, Florida's closed, Tokyo, I think Shanghai as well. So yeah, it's kind of a weird time to be a Disney fan. Luckily, you mentioned Imagineers, which is on Disney Plus.
Oh yeah, thanks.
They're on.
So embarrassly. Yeah, of course it was on
like
Disney
Amazon,
Plus. Yeah.
Netflix. Yeah,
Hulu,
no, it's their own thing. Yeah, they got their own thing. Luckily, they have that. So
that's how new it is. I forgot it exists. Shout out to Mandalorian. That series is awesome.
Yeah, shout out to Mandalorian. Shout out to subscription services that you're paying for and don't know about. So it's tough to be a fan and not be able to go to the park, or as I say, go home for a few days.
Yeah, that's awesome. Kind of, you probably always find something new and something to take away each time that you go.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super into like the history, so I'm the weirdo who will like spend an hour looking at like one building and like, oh, look at these bricks, like, oh my gosh, like, that these bricks were da 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 da. Like I love that stuff. Like I love all that weird minutia of the the parks that particularly with Disneyland in California, just because it was the first theme park of its kind. There's just a lot of weird, unique history there.
Yeah, and lots of detail and everything. Everything has meaning. I mean, or at least they try to add some meaning to it.
For sure. Yeah. The whole thing is interesting because there's a whole story arc, and each ride has a history, and each like land has a history. And I won't geek out about this too much, but the thing I like about Disneyland in comparison to the other parks, one, it's the original one, which adds some value. Two, they're working with a finite amount of space. So the difference between Disneyland and Disney World or any of the other international parks is that they cannot extend their boundaries of the park. They're just stuck with what they have because they can't take any more land according to California law. So yeah, they're stuck with this fixed amount of land. So when they remove something, it's high stakes. They have to really make critical decisions about what's going in, what's going out, what are we modifying, and that's kind of fun. It's like a game of chess almost.
There we go. And probably a little Mario Kart in there somewhere
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
The craziness of it all.
Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Yeah, and working within those parameters and within those limits, which is kind of interesting. These might be a good segue to talking about limits as a creator, as someone that's working on their small business. A lot of limits that I face are with Instagram. Mm-hmm. It's a 1 minute long deal that you can put for a video, and it's also square. I know musicians, on the same side of things, I think the limit used to be, I forget what it was, that songs on average are like 2 to 3 minutes. And, nowadays you could write hours and hours and hours, but back at the time when they were recording on, I don't know, vinyl or maybe whatever predated that, it only had a certain amount of space that it could take. Right?
Yeah.
So
personally, I think putting restrictions or boundaries on things is really important as a creator, because especially with new technologies. So here's an example of how I'd apply that to my composing. So my main instrument is my computer. It's a weird thing to say, but my main instrument is my computer right now. Thousands of plugins, thousands and thousands of songs and libraries and things that we use, from strings, horns, drums, percussion, all these different sounds. Like, it can be really overwhelming. Like, where do I start? Like, how do I make something out of all these sounds? So sometimes what we'll do to kind of gamify or simplify the composing process a little bit will be to, this is speaking as, like me and my buddy Brandon, who often compose together. We'll take turns, like, okay, you pick a sound and then I'll pick a sound, or I'll pick a sound for you and you pick a sound for me, and I've got to do this. Or like, all right, now, and sometimes we use instruments. I mean, we don't just use the computer. Like, sometimes I'll like, all right, now you must use this banjo. Like, I don't care. Like, you got to use this banjo for this part. And we'll just like come up with something. And the fun thing is when you start to play, and I think that's really important as creators to like have this into play, you stumble into things. So we may take a banjo recording, and then on my turn, I might throw like distortion on it, or throw crazy reverb on it, or delay. And then you start to get these things that you would never conceive of creating, because you're not putting pressure on yourself, and you're just like playing within guidelines, basically.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And that's awesome that you kind of have someone to help challenge you, help you grow too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's tough to, I mean, I'm so used to making music with somebody else. So it's, and I definitely make music on my own, but yeah, I feel really grateful to like have a, creative partner like that. It's super fun.
Yeah, co-collaborator. Not everyone finds that kind of relationship where you go through a lot of different ones before you find someone that might be a good fit. And you guys both kind of have a similar approach to SongTub, so you guys are into that together. So I think that's awesome. And then before we kind of wrap things up on the music side of things, I wanted to mention for people the the meta tags and just metadata in general when it comes to all this media. So music is just one more asset, one more thing that you can add the meta tags into, and it's going to help with your SEO and optimization, which we can get into more in part 2. But I don't know, do you want to speak to that at all about the meta tags or anything?
mean, what I would say for the musicians, in regards to like tagging your songs and stuff like that, there are things you can do to your songs to make money on them in terms of royalties. You can use performance rights organizations, ASCAP, BMI. So those are two big ones that essentially track how many plays you get on the radio, or potentially, in digital platforms. So there's things you can do on that front to, register your songs and then try to tag your songs with certain metadata. It's a real pain. On the SEO side of things, I have personally never done much meta stuff within an MP3, and I don't know if that would even be recommended. I think there would be a different approach to that I would take. So everyone's falling asleep right now. Like, what is this guy talking about?
No, I'm with you. No, I think
Yeah.
that's a great answer, because I kind of left that up to, that's kind of a broad question. But I'm with you too. Yeah, probably on the MP3 side, you add it in there, and it may have little to no effect, especially as I think Google probably just sees it as like, oh, it's an audio file.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it's
there's
it's not like a blog where it's crawling through the text in there.
For sure. Yeah, there's again, somebody's going to pass out when I say this. There's structured data markup, which is essentially a way for Google to understand what's on your website. So you may have structured data for audio that would be independent of the MP3 that you could put on your web page that would say, like, this is it's a certain, they call it schema markup. I don't know if you ever heard of schema, but schema.org will give you different things like, oh, this is a blog or a local business or an audio file. There may be things like that for MP3s or audio.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. You threw out a handful of links. I just want to make sure I got them all. So ASCAP is one of them, and BMI.
So ASCAP is ASCAP, and then BMI. Those are the two really, really big performance rights organizations, PROs, that help artists that are, streaming music at a significant level to get paid for royalties.
Yeah, that's huge for those young artists making it out there. And then that last one was schema, schema.org. Yeah, schema.org. Yeah. And I can always search. I just always
that's right.
check.
Yeah, there's other that web page, when you pull that one up, it looks like Craigslist. It's really old, but you could just Google like that kind of thing if you ever are curious.
Yeah, that's awesome. Any more things you want to say about music before we kind of change gears? I think it's awesome what you guys are doing, and definitely folks out there who are viewers or listeners, go check out your guys' music. You guys had an album drop about 9 months ago?
Yeah, so we made an instrumental album as part of our interest in composing film. We wanted to really define our sound, so we made an instrumental album. Our band name for that project is called Low Bridge. It's one word, Low Bridge, just smash them together. You can find that on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, any streaming platform, and I'm really happy with it. I encourage you to check it out. It's definitely like a listen to it at work sort of thing. It's definitely like meditative and cinematic and all that good stuff. It's a lot of fun for anyone who's interested in that kind of music.
Yeah, it's a great listen. I enjoyed it. And yeah, like you hit it spot on. It's kind of meditative, and it has a good variety to it too. I think a lot of people can maybe fall into, not a trap, but like, it just, I don't know, you kind of hear a lot of songs on one album have a similar feel, and you guys gave it a good variety. And I think that's probably a testament to you guys challenging yourselves and saying, hey, stick to this this instrument or this beat and try to make something of it, right?
For sure. Yep. Yeah, we're working on another, just kind of wrap things up. We're working on another album at the moment. It's funny how some creative projects go. The last one took us about 2 months. This one's over a year now. We're still like kind of putting the bow on it, and really excited about it. I don't know if you've ever felt like that, like you start some projects that just, go boom real quick, and then other ones that just take forever. But this one we feel really good about.
Oh yeah. I had something on my to-do list today that I just finally, crossed it off, and had been on there for a good 2.5, 3 weeks. And so it feels good to finally, knock it out of the park. But it's a lot easier. I feel like, when it comes to, like, I guess if we shift gears and talk about productivity, I feel like it's a lot easier when you're just in the zone and excited to work on it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes, luckily fortunately for me, I have the flexibility. And so if I do like a project and it's like, okay, it's 9:30, I can push and, work for the next few hours. But when you have work the next morning, that makes it a little bit more challenging.
Constraints.
Yeah.
Constraints. Yeah.
I know. Which can be good too. For people out there that are working 9 to 5s, even though you have 1 or 2 hours to work on whatever your side business might be, sometimes you're just as productive in those 1 to 2 hours as you would if you had a full 8 to 10 hour day.
For sure. Somebody said when I was younger, I heard on a podcast, you're 5 to 9, like you're after work, instead of your 9 to 5. That was always resonated with me when I heard that. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, you got to really treat your passion or your projects like a regimented job. Like you got to show up for that after hours.
Yeah, my favorite quote recently that I heard, and I like that, the 5 to 9 right after you get done with work. The good quote that I heard recently was someone said, where do you find inspiration? And they were like, I find inspiration at 8 a.m. because that's where I'm going to be every morning, working on whatever that task is. So
cool.
Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome what you guys are doing. We're going to let the advertisement play for SongTub here on the break. So stay tuned for talking about user interface, analytics, research, and strategy after the break. A big thank you to our sponsors over at songtub.com. That's right, song or music and a tub, like a bath, but more fun to say. Tub. Anyway, you can check out SongTub's website for any of your music needs. In fact, the song playing in the background right now is from SongTub. So why pick them over anyone else? Well, they curate the music. And I know the guys, so that means I know that they're selecting great music for your project. A lot of other companies will brag about how many songs they have, maybe 100,000, 200,000, maybe even 1 million. But honestly, I don't have time for that. I don't have the time to just sit down and go next, a song not so great, trying to figure out where the best music is. Songtub.com, great place to get your music. And now I'm excited to offer you the first month for free if you go to songtub.com/pro, P-R-O, and we have a promo code for you. Yes, that's right, my name, your host, Brian, B-R-Y-A-N, and that will give you your first month free to have access to a huge music library that you can use towards your next video project, podcast, or any of your general audio needs. Anyway, back to the show. Here we are, back from the break. Thank you, Stephen. Yeah, we've refilled on our water, so we are good to go. Part 2.
Good to go, fully hydrated.
Yeah, it's important at times like these.
It is.
I know.
Yeah, I stopped drinking alcohol like a few months ago with this quarantine thing. I looked at my girlfriend. I'm like, maybe I should start again.
It's been one of those things where, that's just one of the many. I think a lot of people, I find myself eating more just out of boredom. You're just like, well, I guess and you feel the hunger so much more.
Oh yeah,
just being stationary. So
I went to the store and for some reason they didn't have any food, but they had like a crazy deal on Pop-Tarts. So I bought like 100 Pop-Tarts and I've been, crushing those bad boys. Not advisable, but I feel you, man. The munchies are on.
That's all right. This isn't a nutritious podcast, so I think we can advertise Pop-Tarts. They got a great, from a marketing point of view, they've had a good market share. They created there's nothing else out there like Pop-Tart, unless
I don't think so.
Some off-brand type deals, but they do a good job. Good name that sticks in your head. But anyway,
marketing. Speaking of marketing
on the Media Marketing podcast. So Stephen, I actually don't know a lot about your day to day.
Sure.
Know a lot about SongTub, and I know that you maybe you can talk about the work that you do and how you fell into it. How you
Sure.
came in there.
Great question. So the day job that I have as my title is senior strategist at just this web design marketing agency. Um, the work that I do on a day to day is essentially help companies make more money. And the way I do that is through research, through analytics, through user experience, through driving more traffic to a website. And that's ultimately the goal. People want more traffic to a website or they want more conversion. So that's my day to day. How I got into this stuff, and we can get a little bit more in detail on methodologies and tactics to drive more traffic or convert more traffic. Um, the way that I got into this work is by going to school, going to college. I was a weird kid where I knew what I wanted to do, roughly speaking, by the time like I was 13 or 14. I knew I wanted to be in advertising. But during college, in marketing, in a marketing major, I was, in these courses, and then after class would be listening to podcasts and hear things about Facebook advertising or SEO or analytics, and hear none of that in the classroom. So kind of got my wheels spinning. I started freelancing, thought I'd do my own agency thing during college, and was building websites and was doing digital ads and trying, getting my hands on everything and just being really curious about it all. And long story short, that in a roundabout way led me to my first marketing internship after graduating college at a larger agency, which opened my eyes to being more hands-on with marketing, understanding, getting exposed to analytics. And then, through skipping and jumping, winded up at Gravitate, which is the agency I work for, about 2 years ago, which has been a dream, and have honed in skills, have worked, you mentioned in the bio earlier, like seriously at enterprise level, analytics, SEO, CRO, which is conversion rate optimization, but also on a small scale too. I've worked with, through freelancing, and then through the agency, we have some local clients. So it's been really interesting. The reason I like this stuff is because I believe in it. I've seen this stuff work. I've seen how data-driven marketing can transform a business. Like it can literally, if you do everything right and you have good research and good implementation, which is another half of the coin, you can transform your business. Like I've seen clients go from, let's just say like 10K a month of revenue to like 200K or something, some exponential growth. Like that kind of growth is possible if you have the correct, science to reach the right customer.
Yeah, kind of having those systems in place and analyzing them, and then and I like that you say the science part of it, because I think sometimes people in certain firms, certain industries, they kind of see marketing as like people are throwing spaghetti at the wall trying to hope that things stick, but no, there's really is some fundamentals to what people are trying, and they're doing split testing. People are have a theory, they're testing it and then adapting accordingly. That's awesome that you got interested in that at a pretty young age. And then you've done a good job of being kind of left brain, right brain. We were just talking about music, but then this is kind of the science.
I think that's so critical for a curious person to challenge your brain, because things you learn on one side it's going to impact the other, and life is fluid. Like there's science, but there's also creative. And when it comes to marketing, one of my favorite marketing minds is Seth Godin. If you ever listen to Seth Godin, read his books.
Purple Cow, right?
Purple Cow is one of his books. Yeah, I think he has like 18 bestsellers. And one of his fundamental concepts, which I can't get away from. It's attention and trust. So all really marketing is you need to get people's attention, but then they have to trust you. So my science and my research can get, can help you get that attention really easily. I can get more eyeballs on your product. I can get more eyeballs on your service. But if nobody trusts you, if your creative isn't compelling, if you don't have good social proof, if you don't have trustworthy design or good user experience in design, why would anyone buy from you? So there's this kind of this harmony with creative and strategy, and that's part of what I really enjoy, because I do get to dabble in both.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, having someone that understands both sides of things really makes you pretty unique in that regard.
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of the business owners, the people that are doing these startups that are listening to this podcast, they're probably creating some of their own marketing assets and putting them on social media or running
Mm-hmm.
their own ads. In your own opinion, at what point should someone, like, how much should they learn on their own? How acclimated would you recommend everyone goes out and gets a Google Analytics certificate, or at what point should they bring in an external party?
So I think that there's two approaches that I would recommend. If you're a startup, you need to either know enough to know if somebody's lying to you, because if you are trying to hire somebody else and they're feeding you a bunch of junk, you got to be able to sniff that out and say, hey, I don't think that's right, or I may have heard this, or get your fundamentals down to a point where when you hire somebody, you want to feel really good about them. The other approach, and the reason why I say that, Brian, is that there are a lot of ways to do marketing wrong. And if you are a business owner and have no idea what to do about marketing, you can either learn yourself and try to find an agency, find a freelancer that you can partner with, or you can pull in a partner. You could try to find somebody that has a complementary skill set that understands fundamentals of marketing, that can be a liaison between you and a freelancer or you and an agency. What I see too often, even with some of my own clients over the years, is you end up, the business owners that don't have a fundamental marketing skill set or understanding, that's where things can get a little squirrely, because ultimately budget decisions come from their end, or approval on creative, approval on strategy comes from their end. And without that fundamental understanding, or a partner in the room that is savvy with marketing, that's where things get a little dangerous. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I hear you. And so, like, knowing just enough to be dangerous, or knowing just enough to, you're making the right decisions or bringing in the right people at the right time. And then a lot of this is, you're doing your best and you're testing some things. And I guess I don't know where I'm going with this, other than just like, from your point of view, how often should you maybe review like your efforts? Or is it a weekly thing where you review what you've been doing, or how marketing efforts are working? Is it 6 months, or
so
do you need someone in there day to day checking things?
Nebulous question, because you can have, like, within just digital alone, you can have so many different channels. You could have social, you can have paid social, paid ads on Instagram, organic on Instagram, paid on Facebook, organic on Facebook, paid on Twitter, organic on Twitter, and so on. And then within each of those channels, you have different strategies and tactics that you can use. And what I would seriously advise for anyone that's a startup, just do one thing really good. Just do one thing. Like, just find one piece of marketing that gives you a return on investment. Because I have seen countless times companies that have little budget, spread themselves too thin, do not get a return on investment, and they are, grasping at straws because they don't know what's working. They don't know, what they should be investing in. If you want an analogy, it's like just get one wheel on a car spinning, so that way the car's moving, and then you can get another wheel, and then you can get another wheel, and then you can get another wheel, and you get more sophisticated over time. That's one of my strongest recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. And then, really honing in on what, strategy makes the most sense for you. And you're in an interesting position where you can see a lot of different organizations and maybe work within the same industry. Would you recommend for people, like if you already see a competitor and they are just knocking it out of the park on Facebook, or, they have some of the best, billboards or ad space in town in the local magazine, would you recommend trying to go toe to toe in those spaces, or just go try to like hone in on a different medium?
So back to the whole attention and trust thing. If you are paying for ads, there is infinite ad space in Facebook or in social or in digital. If you see a billboard, you can't go up there and cover their billboard and say, I want, you know what I mean? Like, you can't paint over their spot. So get rid of that whole notion of like, should we even compete? Because there's infinite space. There's infinite digital space. The news feed's going to keep scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. So digital is beautiful in that, like, you can not only target, by age or, demographic, but psychographic interest, all these different affiliations, where a billboard, it's going to capture whoever is in that general area, I guess, whether or not they're interested in your dog, I don't know, like your dog treats or whatever.
Yeah, dogs, or food or whatever services.
Yeah, so like you can cut through all of the noise and just serve up an ad for people that have dogs, like in digital, which is really cool. So I guess to that end, if a competitor is doing one channel particularly well, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. You could experiment with that channel, try to replicate what they're doing, maybe modify the creative, modify the strategy a little bit, try to speak to your value propositions. And I guess before I get too ahead of myself, fundamental advice, we talked a little bit about like getting one channel down really well, like one marketing channel, like get emails working, or get SEO working, or get events working, or direct mail, or whatever. Just pick something and get it working, but also have a good product. That's like one of the most important parts of marketing, is like, is what you're selling good for the price you're selling it at and for the people you're trying to sell it to? Like, yeah, nobody wants to buy your crap.
I know, that's exactly, putting lipstick on a pig or on a horse.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
That was like the .com era was, one aspect of the many things is that people had these brands and then there was no product, or they sold software that didn't actually work,
Mm-hmm.
or had a ton of bugs, or just really sold nothing and people were buying it. It was pretty phenomenal. But yeah, that's a big part of it, and that's where the cohesion across your entire organization makes a big difference, because the products have to be good, the marketing has to be good, the sales department has to be good, all along the way.
Yeah, because when you have a good product, you spend less time trying to convince people and more time just raising awareness or engaging with customers that enjoy your product, and that word of mouth happens and referrals happen, and that organic growth is that much easier. You're not trying to fight against somebody's will. So
you're not cutting through that noise as much. In the attention economy that we're living in, if you're already standing out at top of mind for people, or you don't have to work as hard to get their attention because they already have that trust and they know what they're signing up for when they consume whatever content that you're putting out there. Are there any trends that you're seeing right now in the space?
I guess in particular, we can take this a number of ways. So I spend a lot of my time in search engine optimization, which is SEO, which is, you type in dog treats into Google. I don't know why I'm using dog treats, but I like that.
That's a good example.
I
That's
like
good.
that.
Yeah.
I just like the idea of like some like, you know, really nice old lady in her home making dog treats and selling them online. And and maybe that'll be me when I retire.
Some custom handmade dog treats. Yeah.
Yeah. So this boutique dog treat company, ideally, if somebody types in buy dog treats online, they would show up in Google. That doesn't happen by mistake. It doesn't, everything that gets indexed by Google happens for a reason. And a lot of my job is trying to reverse engineer what makes a website rank in those first 2-3 spots. What we find from behavior is that the first link in Google gets about 30 to like 40% of the clicks. The second link, maybe 10, 15%. Then you start to get to like, you know, 5, and then it just kind of, this tail goes off. And what I'm trying to get at is, if you're serious about SEO, you need to understand, one, the terms you're trying to target. So what do you want your, you know, customers to be typing in? What do you want to show up for? But then you need a strategy for each of those terms, because the search results page, they're going to vary by term. So that's a whole thing. I didn't mean to get that whole can of worms open, but I'm really excited about it. And there are some trends that are happening in SEO, none specific to dog treats, but in all industries. Yeah, it's always changing.
Yeah, I hear you. And I think that's what a lot of our listeners are probably excited about or thinking about is, you know, when someone searches something, are they going to be the number one on there? And I've actually had people literally do this in front of me. You know, I'm like, hey, I just started this new business. So like, they type in video producer or video production Portland, and they're like, well, you're not even on this list. I'm like, well, I just started my business. Like, this takes time to grow your SEO presence.
Very hard. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot of video producers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's challenging. I've worked in some of the most competitive verticals, travel, e-commerce, direct, you know, to consumer stuff. So there is a lot of work that needs to be done to show up in those places.
I guess you can buy it, right? You can buy that top space with the ad dollars
for sure.
But then are people looking past that? They're like, oh, I see that that's an ad. I'm going to click to whatever the next thing is.
Yeah. Click-through rates on ads have declined over the years. They still work. Everything works. That's just something I want to get out there. Every marketing channel works. It's just how much energy, how much money are you going to put in to each one of these things? And is it worth your return on investment? So that's another fundamental piece of advice is like, yeah, billboards work, TV works, radio works, everything works. It's just, you know, to what end?
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, because I think like the younger generation wants to like kind of like, why would I do a newspaper ad, or why would I run an actual commercial? But yeah, they all work to a degree, and whatever works for your business and works for your industry.
Yeah.
Then I guess like from your point of view, like SEO, like it is kind of a long game to play, unless, you know, everyone that got into or built a website has had presence for the last 2 decades. They're at a huge advantage, right?
Pretty much, yeah. There's a number of ranking factors. One of them has to do with trustworthiness. So how trustworthy is your website? Well, there's a few indicators that Google and other search engines, we're mostly talking about Google here, nobody's on Bing.
That's what I was going to ask you. That was going to be a later question.
Yeah, sometimes I'm surprised. Some verticals, they get Bing because they're more Microsoft users or something like that, but it's really rare. For Google, they're looking at trustworthiness. They're looking at the value of the content itself, responsiveness, site speed. To go to the first point of trustworthiness, those that have an older website, they probably have more backlinks, which means they probably have more websites in the world that are pointing to them. That's one of the bigger things in SEO, is just getting more authority through backlinks. They also probably have more mentions on like PR articles or social media mentions. Like all of these indicators matter now when they didn't before. So it's a whole spectrum of things that go into SEO. And you're right, those that are ranking well, those juggernaut sites, like they're hard to beat. Like I can't outrank Yelp.com for a lot of things. So if you're a local business trying to get above Yelp, like good luck. Like I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And then because you can only write so many blog posts. You can only, I don't know.
Well, it depends. It depends, and I don't want to sound so absolute, because when I'm saying rank above Yelp, I want to be clear that I'm talking about more broad match terms. So like if I type in barbershop Portland, you're probably going to get ads. You're probably going to get a Google map. You're probably going to get Google My Business listings. You're probably going to get Yelp or something like that. And then you're going to get organic. So there's strategies for that whole search engine results page. That's not to say you could rank number one or rank above Yelp for longer tail keywords like what's the best scissors to use, or how do I find a good barber, or what's a good haircut nowadays, like that kind of stuff. You could try different approaches to get traffic.
Yeah, not just trying to get barber as the number one or
exactly
PDX barber. Yeah. You're actually just getting those other supplemental things, and then providing. It's a really interesting time where you have to provide value first, and that Gary V, the jab right hook or whatnot, where you put out all this content.
Sure.
As a big way of going about it, which is kind of nice. I think it's a change of pace for me, as a consumer, that, hey, we're not just being sold all this stuff. You actually have Lowe's or Home Depot making how-to videos on how to use their equipment and how to be able to, interact with their products. So it's really, benefit for everybody. But it also, it's sweat equity. It takes time,
exactly.
Especially for these.
It's that whole
owners.
Like attention and trust thing. Like you can pay for attention, or you can make good content, or you could do both. With SEO, a lot of times you're not paying for the direct traffic, but you're paying for the content in some way. Like you're paying in terms of your time, you're paying for somebody to write that stuff, to research it, to optimize it. It's definitely work either way.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any good ideas for people that are business owners? They're doing a million things, but maybe some basic analytics that they should track at a fundamental level.
Yeah,
I know it's that's a nebulous question.
It
as
is,
well,
but I think that it's important because first, instantly I want to know what's your business, because that's the first thing I want to know, is getting my head around what industry you're in, what are your competitors,
Let's do dog treats. So if a dog treat owner, what would be, maybe they're running, I don't know, if they're dog treats, maybe they do Instagram. They definitely have a website. They're trying to rank a little higher.
Okay. What I would suggest for just universally getting a set of goals set up on we're speaking about websites right now. So just getting a list of what are my top level goals: transaction, newsletter sign up, maybe contact form. Okay. So establish those goals. We're speaking about Google Analytics now. So for those that aren't familiar with Google Analytics, I'm sorry, but there are some things you need to do on the front end to set up your account. And if you're not a technical person, maybe this is the time to hire a freelancer, hire Brian. I don't know, find somebody that knows enough to make sure you're tracking those goals. How many users are coming to the website? Are they on desktop or mobile? Put this personal list of questions together, because depending on your business, you're going to want to know different things. So I'd get that initial set of goals put together, initial set of behaviors put together. One thing I will mention is important if you're a small business is to not track yourself. So there's things you can do in Google Analytics to exclude your office, exclude your employees' traffic. that,
that's huge. Or yeah, exclude your mom visiting your website,
yeah.
100
So
times.
built just like looking at like analytics sophistication curve, like the first thing is like setup, filtering, segmentation. Um, you don't need to get too crazy with that stuff. I'm just advising, like, make sure that what you're tracking is accurate and that it's clean first, because if you don't set things up in a good way up front, in 6 months when you look retroactively, you may have inflated numbers or things may not look right.
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Having the accuracy of the data is huge, because then you know how
yeah.
to,
And
adjust and make changes for the future.
yeah, and don't feel bad, because big companies mess this up like big time. So, so like often I'll work with a company. I'm like, you are how big, and like you're tracking all of this is wrong. Like all of this is terrible.
Not usable. Yeah.
Um, so don't feel bad. It's, I'm coming from a place of like, I always want things to be the best. So if you're trying to be the best, you get things taken care of up front. So when you start to spend serious money down the road, you have good analytics. You don't have bad analytics.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's gonna be really helpful for people to kind of think. Without getting too deep into it, I'd recommend people maybe watch a YouTube video about the Google Analytics. You can take their course. I gave a stab at their course. It's not easy, but it's free, which is nice, and it is a good foundation to understand a lot of that. And then I was going to say, so we've kind of gone to the analytics side of things, and then for you, you also touched about research. Is that kind of just
Sure.
keyword research that you do, or is there some other research that you do?
It's a whole slew of things. So I mentioned driving traffic is one part of my job, and part of that includes SEO. Maybe it includes advising on some paid strategy. The other half of my job is research on what happens when they get to the website. Okay, they clicked from a blog on SEO, or they clicked from an ad on Facebook or whatever. What are they doing on site? And, what are they clicking on? How long are they staying? That kind of research is really endless. There are different methodologies to do research. You can use analytics. You can do user testing, in-person stuff. If you want to get more on the UX side of things, some
Heat
UX,
maps.
sure, heat mapping, video tracking,
Yeah.
looking at scroll depths, looking at hover engagements, things like this that can lead you to ideas to experiment with, basically, and just
Yeah.
keep refining and refining and refining. So a lot of what I do on the research front is to inform the strategy, which informs the traffic, which informs like the experience, which informs the research, and it's just kind of like over and over and over and over and over again. And it's a lot of fun. I actually really like it a lot.
Yeah, I think it's nice. Probably when things start, like you have a theory based on the numbers, and then you run with it, and the theory works. That's got to be, one of the best feelings in the world.
It's pretty great. Yeah, it's pretty great. And often you're wrong. Like you can do an A/B test or a split test and be incorrect, and that's fine too, because you're just agnostic to the data. It's like, okay, we're just trying to make better decisions, and that's why we're testing things before rolling it out into the world. So yeah, from that point of view, there's endless research that you can do on a website, where I think, in a practical point of view, where somebody could start as a small business, like get Hotjar on your website. We can, recommend that tool, hotjar.com. It's awesome for heat mapping and awesome for, looking at, you can literally watch like user videos and like watch their screen go around through the website. And I think they give you 100 videos for free and 3 heat maps for free.
Wow.
So sign up for that tool, install a bit of code on the website, and I think that'll open your eyes to what is possible at a basic level for UX research, without actually having to do in-person user testing.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome. And then there's a lot of tools as a resource at your fingertips. I think that's great that you recommended Hotjar. What's pretty mind blowing, and I think would, blow the socks off of a lot of, older business owners that are starting something. They'd be like, wow, I didn't even know you had access to really honing in on people's geography, demographics, what, what other websites they've visited, what their personality type is.
Yeah.
It's mind blowing. Have you seen even a lot of changes in the last 5 years on what analytics can do?
Yeah, there is this whole wave of de-anonymizing analytics, which is kind of a scary thing, but getting what they call user or visitor intelligence is basically something that's very popular among like business to business right now. So if you're a big software company, you want to know, let's put an example out here. You're a big software company and you're trying to get other big companies to buy your software. So wouldn't you want to know, like, hey, is Coca-Cola visiting my website? Is Disney visiting my website? Who from these companies are on my website right now? Oh, they're coming from this office. Okay, why don't we get our sales team to reach out to them? And it's really insane the kind of information that you're able to get from these marketing technologies. It's evolving rapidly as well. Like new things come out, better tools, better research tools available. Often at an expense, usually at a cost. There's some, depending on the size of your company, different tools that you can use are always changing. It's little scary in some ways. I'm not super into that. I'm more dialed into creating great experiences on a website that any user would want to, go through, rather than trying to pick apart particular user journeys that are,
like manipulative, I guess, or something like that. Yeah.
Not even manipulative. I guess what I'm getting at from a strategy point of view is that everybody's going to have a different experience. So if you're trying to pick apart like individuals on a website, and this is back to that whole like de-anonymized thing, like, oh, Brian went to my website, clicked on pricing, then he went to this page, then he went to that page, blah, 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 blah. I think it's more useful to, instead of looking at a particular user, in some instances, to look at your traffic and then cross it by different things. So cross it by traffic coming from Facebook, or cross it by mobile usage, or cross it by like Safari versus Chrome or something like that, instead of trying to pick apart these individual journeys that of course are going to consume different content because humans are different. Like, why not try to, instead of solve one person's problem, maybe solve 100 at one time. So that was a weird thing to get into, but hopefully that made sense.
A cactus knows how to survive. It can endure scorching heat, limited rainfall, and defends itself against critters daily. Your business is no different. To survive harsh conditions, it's important to develop deep roots using media content that'll continuously nourish and support your marketing efforts day after day. Tactus Media is here to help you determine a strategy and create media content. Together, let's map out the next sequence of videos, podcasts, and social media to help your business thrive. Work with Tactus Media, media tactics that stick. Ouch! Visit tactusmedia.com to learn more.
And I think from a high level view too, yeah, if you're honing in on one person's experience, yeah, you might get that person's attention. But yeah, if you're able to get 100 people to have a good experience when they go to your website, they're not getting confused. And I'm sure you see in some of those analytics, those heat maps where people just kind of go in a circle or some kind of loop, and you're like, oh, they weren't able to get to the spot that they needed to.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you see all sorts of weird things. I think it'll open, if anyone's eager to try it out, you will definitely discover some things. In particular, the video tracking is really helpful if you're just getting started. I think it can be useful to watch those individual user journeys to get a feel for how the design is working. Not so helpful for, making larger marketing decisions, I guess, with like data. Like you wouldn't want to just
base everything on it. Yeah.
Base everything on one user. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have kind of any recommendations, for people bootstrapping or?
I do. I mean, honestly, I think if you are a startup, you want to avoid losing money. That's like the number one thing. Like, you don't want to lose money. You don't want to waste money on marketing. You don't want to waste money on a website. Um, and that's a tricky thing because you may not know where to start. Um, what works for, companies as they're starting up now, I think it's important to realize that change in marketing is going to be very rapid. So when you're bootstrapping, do a Squarespace site, do a Wix site, whatever you need to do to get something up there at a low expense, but be comfortable in knowing that that's not going to serve you in the long term. So I think with that in mind, as you're bootstrapping and getting a affordable website up, get one marketing channel working really well. So if you are this doggy tree company, maybe you are really crushing organic Instagram because you are doing cute pictures of dogs and you're doing a good job about using your hashtags and whatever it is, but you're just crushing that one thing. One bit of advice just in general for people starting with marketing: emails are like the currency of marketing. So if you can get a customer's email, that is worth a lot. So whether it's Instagram, whether it's Facebook, whether it's, knocking on people's doors or going to events or whatever, as you're starting out, developing your email list is super, super important because you have a direct line of communication with that person without having to necessarily pay for that. So I guess do one channel well, collect a lot of emails, you'll be fine. And then understand that your website, you're going to put money into this thing after you get one marketing channel working really well. Be comfortable and know that, yeah, you're probably going to need to get away from Wix or Squarespace eventually. Go to Shopify for a custom build, go to WordPress for a custom build, something like that.
Are 90% of the people that you work with are like, I don't know, 98% of the people using WordPress? I would imagine once you get to the bigger level, you need the customability and the
For
plugins
sure.
and everything.
Yeah. So there's a lot of ways to do WordPress incorrectly. And there's if you're doing it at a serious level, it's probably, in my opinion, the best content management system available. If you are doing a scrappy WordPress website, sometimes you get in a pickle because you're over leveraging plugins and it gets too bloated and you have security risks or you have like update risks and requires more maintenance. Where WordPress really shines is when you're using WordPress as it was intended, on the core functionality, not with all these different plugins and things trying to sit on top of WordPress. So that's kind of a long-winded way of saying, if you're a startup, you may end up spending more money on not necessarily the platform, but maybe the services behind maintaining your website.
Yeah. I know, always having those plugins up to date. I know they've crashed many a website.
Oh yeah.
Not having the latest thing.
Yeah, it's not great. So we try as much as possible in our the websites that we manage to minimize the amount of plugins we're using. Try to do custom when we can, when it makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. I know. We'll see how long I'm on Squarespace right now. We'll see how long it. I stay on there, but
to be honest, like, it's fine. Like, for most businesses, it's fine. If you really want to crush SEO, not a good CMS for that at the moment.
And Wix has gotten like a big downgrade, or not a lot of people. I guess SEO, it's kind of a nightmare for Wix.
Okay, yeah, I haven't spent too much time with Wix, but I'm certified Squarespace designer, actually. Squarespace Circle member. It's not very hard to get in. Basically, you just have to make a couple websites that they deem quality. So I've spent a fair amount of time in Squarespace, and I love it. I think it's really great. It's not scalable though. It doesn't have scalability in terms of blocks or pages. The information architecture that you can develop within Squarespace is really restricted. And then on the SEO front, beyond text on page, there's not a whole lot you can do from the technical point of view, which WordPress, you can do everything.
Yeah. So yeah, it just kind of depends. I think, we've given people some good tips out here that, start with what you can do it within budget.
Don't lose
then you
money.
Can always grow. Yeah.
Don't lose money. That's what's that? Warren Buffett's number one rule. I think it applies to startups too. Don't waste your money, dude. Don't. Yeah.
That man is a unicorn, but I hear you. Yeah. Trying to get your money to work for you, make good investments. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Marketing. You want that stuff to work. You want it to work for you.
Yep. All right, Steven, this has been awesome. I think we provided a lot of good content for people, lots of good information. Thank you a ton for coming on to the show. I'm glad we finally made this work. I think this has been happenings for a while. So, I just want to say, appreciate all the stuff that you do, and I appreciate you coming on the show. Any closing thoughts? Any final words to the listeners?
I'll say a couple things. I think if you made it through all of this, you probably realize that I do a lot of different things, and it may seem like I'm a scattered person. I think I'm very aware that I do a lot of different things. But I've also seen the benefit of this. I've seen how trying a bunch of different things, gives me perspective, and it gives me inspiration. So I think it's very, very important to have your core one or two, energy areas where you really focus on these things at a high level, let's say 80% of your time, right? The 80-20 thing. But I also think it's really important to draw outside the lines a little bit, find a interesting hobby or skill or passion area that may open up a new door, or may give you different perspective on your 80% energy. So I guess my parting thought would be to don't put yourself in a box. And I think it's this concept. I learned recently, there was a TED talk on slow motion multitasking, and how some of the greatest thinkers did this sort of slow motion multitasking, where they would go really deep into one subject and then hit a wall, pause, and then go really deep in another subject, and then, oh, wow, that idea gave me something for this thing. So I would just encourage those, who haven't tried something new in a while to, try something new.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. And kind of putting some clarity. I don't think you're scattered at all. I think it's just, following where your curiosity, following where your interest lies. And I found the same success too, where a lot of the things that if I just followed that passion, it has a payout later, and you can connect it to. I mean,
absolutely.
With SongTub, like with your website and SEO experience, you're able to apply that directly. So.
Yeah, that is, just as an anecdote, all of our artist applications for SongTub come through SEO. So if you type in submit music for licensing into Google, we're the number one result. We get hundreds of applications a month. Crazy.
That's incredible. That's awesome. Yeah. And so, playing to the different strengths, using those different skill sets. And I think they all come together eventually in due time.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you, Steven. It's getting pretty late here.
Let's
I'm glad we were able to connect online with everything going around, and stay safe out there.
Absolutely. I will. You too.
All right, Steven. Till next time.
Stay healthy. Bye-bye.
See ya.
I want to say a big thanks for tuning into the Media Marketing Podcast. Please subscribe to get notifications for new episodes, which are coming out every Thursday morning, or at least we're striving for that. Feel free to visit our Facebook page, where you can like and join the media marketing community. This is a good resource for collaborating, sharing ideas with other media creators, marketers, and those just looking to build their network. So until next time.